Hello and welcome back to Genesis Designs and Modelcraft, and welcome back to another quick look review. And today I have the reasonably new Arma Hobby 1/72 Curtis Hawk, the H75 in the A1 and A2 version. So this kit was released earlier this year, not all that long ago. I think it was February, March time this actually came out, and I didn't buy it back then. I actually picked this up a few days ago on a whim, if I'm honest, mostly because I like the look of the camouflage scheme. But I thought I'd do a quick look review since I have it and it's fairly modern and up to date. So, standard Arma Hobby box, a very petite little box here, and on the back they do give you an idea of the markings options that you get inside the box. We have 3 in this box: the funky camo, a natural metal version and a slightly less funky camo version, and it is an end opening box. Everything contained within the one pack, and it's one of these resealable peely packets. Let's see what we have in here. Alright, transparencies are in a separate bag. Got instructions, masks, decals, okay, and just two main sprues. Now, as you can see, I have had an undercarriage door has become detached, but it was contained within the bag, so no worries. So let's start by looking at the bigger of the 2 sprues. This is sprue A and does contain the main airframe pieces, as you can see. In common with other Arma Hobby kits, the main wing is moulded full span for both the upper and the lower halves. This is a big help with keeping the hedral, or just the general angles of the wing, set into place. The cockpit floor is integral with that upper wing moulding. Then we've got fuselage halves. They're both noseless and tailless. And we're finished off with a few detail parts, some wheels, propeller, part of the forward fuselage here, and some engine bits and pieces. The surface detail is very typical Arma. It is beautiful. It's very, very fine, with this lovely sort of eggshell satin finish on the plastic, but it's not rough. It's a matte finish without being rough. All of the surface detail is recessed, except then inside the wheel wells here we have raised rivet detail, some raised panelling, and some very, very fine rib tape detail on these ailerons. There's also a bit of raised detail back here. Looking at the top side, same story. It's all recessed detail apart from rib tapes, and then some raised detail around these walkway parts. Again, raised rivets on the internal detail, and indeed the underside of the wing skin. The fuselage halves, again, is all recessed detail, with the odd little bit of raised panelling and some what look like maybe louvers or some such here. And then on the inside there is some detail moulded in to the sidewalls. Note also that the Arma Hobby plastic hinges have made a reappearance, which I'm pleased about. These I think this one will probably need to be removed with some snips before assembly, but these probably won't get in the way of anything. Then we have, so the tyres here are pre-flattened, and there are some what look like canvas covers for the undercarriage, the wheelbase. All looks very competent and very, very attractive so far. So that's the bigger of the two main sprues. Let's have a look at the second one. This is of course Sprue B. And this has everything else on it. It's a lot of small detail parts here. So you've got a pilot seat bulkhead, instrument panels, the engine cowl, 4 parts, control column, and then flying controls or flying control surfaces, and then undercarriage parts. Now there's a reasonable amount of mould seam going on these smaller parts. They're going to need a little bit of a scrape and a fettle to finesse them up a bit, and that is the case across the board on these smaller pieces. I'll note there's actual flash on the bottom part of that control column, but if I go, not sure if it will come through, but if you look at each one of those, of these, you can see the mould seams. They're going to need a good old scraping clean up, and that seems to be the case across the board on these smaller parts. Not a massive issue, but it's just one of those where spending a few minutes on parts prep will benefit you with a better looking model. Engine is in 2 pieces. That's and it does appear quite well detailed, and note that there are some recesses on the inside of these cowl parts to allow it all to fit together. There's a partial plastic hinge there that will probably also need to go. 1-piece tail plane, nice for alignment, and we've got 2 instrument panels which just have a very vague representation of instrumentation on them. I expect there's probably a decal somewhere. So that's those plastic parts. Then we have transparencies. Oh, and these are absolutely delightful. Raised framing, but quite subtly. 2 separate windscreens, one with what I assume is an armoured windscreen, and one with the nice aerodynamic version. Got a lens here, the side windows, and the sliding canopy. They have taken the joint surface of these side windows away from the actual transparency a little bit, which is nice. It's often a thing on kits of P40s that there isn't much or any framework around these, so it's really hard to glue them into place without that gluing being visible, which is frustrating. But they have, in this case, moved that joint area just away a little bit. You can see the sort of frosted edge. Likewise, the windscreens have got part of the forward fuselage decking included in them. That should ease fitment somewhat. Okay, well that was very quick. Let's move on to the instructions. I guess I should mention the price. So I did get this from Hannon's, and I have paid $21.99 for the kit. Okay, so there's a little sort of just an A5 pamphlet layout. We've got a little bit of history here in English, and this side is in Polish, and some very tiny parts layouts for the various different bits. We've got colour callouts in Hataka, AK Real Colour, Mr. Colour, Ammo, Humbrol, Mr. Paint and Tamiya. And here, interesting touch, there's a QR code you can scan with your phone which will take you to a place where you can download 3D files to print accessories. So it's a no extra charge to you. Having bought this kit, you can go here, scan this code and print off a small set of accessories for the model, which includes, if memory serves, a seat with moulded in belts, some gun sights for mounting onto the cowl, nicely finessed up exhaust ports, probably a couple of other pieces, but it's no extra charge. It just means that you do need to have a friend or someone in the club with a 3D printer that can make some of these for you. I'll be giving Drew a shout. So pop these out of the way. And off we go. So we begin construction with the wheel wells. And these are folded up out of those long thin plastic parts you probably noticed and wondered what they were. And as an optional extra, you can put the canvas covers in or not. Then move on to the cockpit area and building it directly onto that upper wing piece. And you can see that the instructions are printed in colour as well as with the colour callouts. It gives you an immediate quick reference that you're looking for a green. There are also a multitude of decals for the interior, which is nice. Remove the vents if you are modelling painting option 1 or 2. And then we move on to the engine, which, as befits the small size, is a relatively simple assembly. But there's a lot of detail moulded onto those parts, so it should look good anyway. That's attached to the front of the fuselage and then obviously hidden in that cowl. To that we add the undercarriage. Quite a lot of small fiddly parts for that. Propeller, aerial and transparencies, and that's us done. Very simple assembly indeed. Schemes then, we have 3. This is the one I like. It's a very colourful and yet still camouflaged, and quite an interesting camouflage scheme, I feel, personally. And this was flown by Jan Zumbach, who went on to fly for the Royal Air Force with a great degree of success. And we have some fairly typical French markings here. The very colourful tricolour rudder and a sort of a stalk, looks like a stalk marking on there, and large serials underneath the wing. This is listed as H, I and J, which is khaki, brown and blue-grey. Dark blue-grey. Do like that. Second scheme, Spring 1939. This is natural metal. Again with the lovely colourful tricolour on the fin, large serials and some fairly colourful markings all around. This one based at REM in 1939. And the final one, similar colours to the first one but much larger blocks of colour. This one at Toul Quadamets in November 1939, but again lots of really good colourful markings. The tricolour fin again, an Indian head motif. It's very cool, very cool indeed. And I do not have enough French aircraft in my model collection, so the decal sheets, there we go. printed by Tech Mod. Nothing wrong with that. There are a multitude of stencils, instrument panels. There are 2 different instrument panel decals and other internal decals, lots and lots going on there. We do have a set of decal seat belts, and then the rest of the sheet is taken up with national markings and the specific scheme markings. Each of the 3 schemes has a full rudder decal, which some may not prefer, but unfortunately it's not going to be easy to get around because all of the data has been reproduced on that decal, so you kind of have to use it. It's a very good looking sheet and quite comprehensive for such a small scale and indeed such a small model. Some of these stencils are truly tiny. Very nice indeed. And finally, a little mask set. This includes the main wheels, the tail wheels, that lamp lens and the canopy parts. There you go. And there you have it then, a quick look review of this latest 72nd scale release from Arma Hobby. I think it's fair to say that Arma Hobby had a little bit of a glitch when they released the P39s and then the Hayabusa. I think it's reasonable that a lot of modellers, myself included, were slightly disappointed in how those kits were compared to the Hurricane. The Hurricane was such a high watermark. I think we all expected subsequent kits from the company to be at that level. But they changed suppliers or manufacturing partners, and so there was a change in the way things were done. I think this kit heralds a return to the sort of levels things were at previously. There's a slight whiff of short-rundedness about some of the parts, that sort of slightly heavy mould seams on the tiny parts, but the quality is definitely there. There's no trace of the sort of the big sink marks and surface defects that the P39 had, for instance. And you can't fault their subject choice, because where else do you get an H75, especially in this sort of quality? What a cool aeroplane. The familial resemblance to the P40 is very, very obvious, and it will make a really interesting subject with its bright, colourful, non-standard Frenchness in a lineup of World War II subjects. There has already been another boxing of this kit with some American markings in it for those that might prefer that, and that's marketed as the P36A rather than as the H75. At $21.99 it is arguably a tad on the pricey side, but it does include 3 marking schemes and a sheet of masks and a free download for that little suite of 3D printed extras. So with all of that considered, I don't think it's a ridiculous price, and the quality of the kit does look good, on the sprues at least. So there we go. The latest from Arma Hobby. There is a 72nd scale P51D very, very imminent. I have not pre-ordered it, but I might well grab one when it does reach general release, and we'll see how that looks and if they've moved the game on again from this release to that one. But for now, that's it. Thanks very much for watching, and big thanks as always to all my channel members and those of you that choose to support me on Buy Me a Coffee. And with all of that said, I think it only remains for me to say, until next time, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.